Gotten a couple of inbox questions about when do I multiply versus when do I add with probability. So the key to figuring out when you multiply versus when you add is looking at the events. Is it an and event or is it an or event? So that's the first step in looking at, does the word problem tell me and or does it tell me or? So if I'm looking at the situation for an or, I would say given a 52 card deck, what is the probability of getting a king or a queen? I'm just typing this out so you guys can see this. So given a 52 card deck, what is the probability of getting a king or a queen? So my first clue here is the word or. My second clue is I'm not doing something more than once. So the multiplication rule is specific to I'm having two separate events. Here, I'm only drawing one time, and I'm asking a king or a queen. So there's one event. So here I would add. So I would have, there are 4 kings in a deck, and there are 4 queens in a deck. So my answer would be 8 over 52, and I would reduce it. So that's when we add probabilities, is when it's not more than one event, and it's a or situation. The multiplication rule would be when there is more than one event happening. So what does more than one event happening means? That means I'm flipping a coin 5 times. That's 5 events. I'm doing it 5 times. I'm rolling a die 3 times. Those are 3 events. So what the rule says is if I have multiple events happening and I'm wanting to look at the probability of something happening and something else happening. So I want heads on all 5 times. That's heads and heads and heads and heads and heads. It's an and statement. The word and may not necessarily be in there, but I'm telling you I want this to happen and this to happen and then this to happen. If they're independent, meaning one does not influence the other. So if I'm flipping a coin, like we found in the discussion, the first flip does not affect what happens on the second flip. If I roll a die, what I get when I roll the die the first time does not affect anything to do with the second time. That's when we would multiply. So an example of that question would be, I flip a coin 5 times. What is the probability of getting heads? So what is the probability of getting heads on each flip? Here's that problem. So I have 5 events because I'm flipping it 5 times. I want to know what is the probability of getting heads on each flip. So I'm going to take the first time. It's 1/2, first flip. Second flip. Third flip. Fourth flip. Fifth flip, because these are independent events. So I have 2 to the 5th power. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. So the probability would be 1 over 32. Any problem that involves a coin or a die is going to be a multiplication rule if you have more than one event, because they're always going to be independent. So I hope that clears up some of the confusion happening in the knowledge path. I know it's difficult because we're not really using mini-tab this week, so this is a very mathy concept. So this is when you would use multiplication versus addition, and the key thing being here, we have to have more than one event happening, and if those events are independent, which for the most part, what's in your KP, they are independent, then you would multiply the probabilities together.